Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about cannabis and opioids, and I'll explain a little bit later. So I'm going to keep the history short and sweet. Basically, there's a problem right now in the United States. Opioid addiction is a real thing. A lot of people have died from it, and there have been a lot of solutions to how we can stop them, public policy, and one of the biggest has been medical cannabis, as that is gaining a lot of ground. A lot of states, more states are legalizing it. However, it's a lot hard to experiment with because the FDA Controlled Substances Act has cannabis as a Schedule I drug, meaning that it is addictive and cannot be used for medical purposes. And opioids are a Schedule II, which basically means that they have similar effects, but they are accepted medically. So the two questions we're going to ask are, what's scientific evidence to show that cannabis is safe medicine for relieving chronic pain, and what are the risks? And also, what evidence is there to show that medical cannabis is capable of being a viable substitute as a pain reliever to current opioid users? The first study we're going to look at is from the National Academies. We actually looked at this in class. Basically, they said there is conclusive evidence to show that cannabis or cannabinoids are effective for the treatment of chronic pain in adults. And these guys don't mess around. What they say goes. This was in 2017, and it's a big deal. However, there are adverse risks to marijuana. Their studies kind of go back and forth, but this was one that kind of summarized all of the stereotypes and consistencies. Basically, they found, among other things, that 9% will develop an addiction who use cannabis daily. Those who do it in adolescence, it messes up your neural activity. You're 2 to 4 more times likely to be addicted. And it just seems like it's a problem. However, they admit they don't know the long-term effects yet. We don't know what it's going to be like 50 years from now for people who are using medical cannabis all the time. So that is also part of it. The next thing I'm going to look at, this is seeing if a medical cannabis law is implemented in the state, what will happen to the opioid mortality rate. Basically what they did was they ran a regression, they simulated it, and what they found here, it's interesting, is that 24.8 overall in the mean is there will be 24.8 less deaths after an opioid policy or after a medical cannabis law has been implemented about opioid deaths. And they just use standard difference in difference model. So that's promising. However, there are a lot of effects that are out of their control. For example, they don't know if the doctors caught that there were opioid addictions and they stopped giving them out, or if they're just general knowledge in the public. So there's a lot of things, so you can't call that conclusive. The next I'm going to look at, this is a study from Canada. It's a cross-sectional survey, and basically they sent a survey to people who were verified medical cannabis eligible, and seeing what they were substituting, if they were substituting medical cannabis for opioids. And they found that 35.3% of them were actually doing that. And they found of that 35.3%, they were substituting cannabis for opioids, that 59.3% of those people were 100% replacing opioids and medical cannabis, and that the 18.4% of them were replacing it 75% of the time. Those two numbers are huge because that means that people are really choosing this as a chronic pain reliever over opioids, which is a great thing in reversing the tides. However, it's Canada. We don't know a lot of things. There could be outside factors that we're not thinking of, so also inconclusive. The next story is another cross-sectional, and this one's actually from the United States. And they did a similar thing, but they did it based off of pain measurements, and they found similar data. They found that people were reducing their opioid use by about 64%, on a mean, which is huge because that means that both these studies have shown, although they are self-reported surveys, that people are using cannabis over opioids, and that is the main takeaway. However, it's a cross-sectional survey. There's a lot of outside factors we don't know. So therefore, we can also not call this conclusive. So my final thoughts are that this is basically it's a nationwide problem. There's conclusive data, there's inconclusive data, but there's a lot more inconclusive data. We still don't know a lot. There still needs a lot of things need to change. The government right now isn't doing much to help. And It's going to be a problem for a while, but I do have hope personally that the opioid solution or the opioid crisis will be solved. And I think that medical cannabis will have a role in some way, shape, or